My name is Tom Walker, and I ended up on the floor in front of my entire family on Christmas Eve, gravy soaking my shirt, my hips screaming after my stepson Kyle shoved me away from the head of the table and said, "That seat is my dad's. Get out." For a moment, no one moved. Christmas lights blinked in the window. Forks paused midair. I looked up at Kyle's tight half smile and waited for my wife Linda to say my name like it mattered. She didn't. She grabbed napkins and started blotting gravy from the hardwood, as if the spill was the issue, not the man on the floor. That was when something inside me went silent. Not anger, something colder, more final. Cedar Rapids, Iowa is home. Snowy driveway conversations, small talk at the credit union, Friday fish fries at the VFW. I'm 56 and I've lived by simple rules. Show up, keep your word, pay your bills early. At this age, your name is your credit. That's why the chair mattered. It was my father's chair. Old wood, worn arms, a squeak in the back left leg. When he was in hospice, he sat there by the window, watching the parking lot like he was waiting for someone to come home. After he passed, I hauled it into my garage, tightened the joints, stained it walnut, and repatted the seat. I did it myself because it felt like saving a piece of him. When Linda and I got married, second marriage for both of us, I brought that chair into her split level like it belonged. For years on holidays, it sat at the head of the table, not because I demanded it, but because that's where the host sits. That's how I was raised, and I'd been hosting more than anyone liked to admit. 2 summers ago, I used a chunk of my savings to redo Linda's kitchen. Solid cabinets, a new faucet, better lighting over the sink. Nothing flashy, just decent. Linda cried when she saw it and said, "Now I can have family over without being embarrassed." I believed her. Kyle was supposed to be part of that family. He's 32, built like he still thinks high school football might call him back. Broad shoulders, quick temper, restless energy, like the world owes him something. He bounced between jobs and always ended up back in Linda's orbit when money got tight. He never called me dad, just Tom. I didn't push it. I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I helped him anyway, taught him basics, gave him my old drill when he moved out, covered a bill here and there when Linda begged me to keep the peace. I figured kindness would come back around. Then Kyle's biological father, Ray, started showing up again. Ray was loud and confident, the kind of man who acted like he owned every room he entered. Linda said he'd been mostly absent when Kyle was a kid. Lately, he was making up for lost time, which meant spoiling Kyle and letting him believe Ray was the only man who mattered. That Christmas, Ray insisted on coming to dinner. Linda said, "It's important to Kyle." I said, "So am I." She gave me that tight smile that meant, "Please don't start. Let's just have a nice night." By 5 o'clock, the house was hot from the oven. Turkey filled the air. A store-bought pie sat on the counter because Diane, Linda's sister, baked by buying whatever was on sale. Someone put on old Christmas music, Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, the kind my dad used to hum. I made coffee the way Linda liked it, strong and plain. Kyle arrived last, of course, with Ray right behind him. Kyle slapped Ray on the shoulder and said, "There he is, the man of the hour." Ray grinned at me like I was hired help. "Smells good in here," he said. "We all pitch in," I replied. He chuckled, like that was amusing. We sat. Plates clinked. Someone said a quick prayer. I reached for the carving knife, my dad's old one, sharp and thin, and that's when Kyle's hand shot out and grabbed the back of my father's chair. "Hold up," he said. I looked at him, confused. "What are you doing?" Kyle's eyes were bright and hard. He nodded at Ray. "That seat belongs to my dad," he said, loud and sure. "Get out." I started to laugh like my brain thought it was a joke. "Kyle, don't." He shoved me. Not a playful push, 2 hands to my shoulder and chest. The chair scraped. My boot caught the rug. My hips slammed into the floor, pain ripping through me so fast it stole my breath. Gravy splashed across my shirt and onto the wood. Someone gasped. A fork hit a plate with a sharp ping. A kid whispered, "Mom." Kyle stood over me, breathing hard, like he'd finally proven something. Linda didn't even look down. She grabbed napkins. She wiped the spill. Her face was calm, almost blank, like this was easier than choosing a side. I pushed myself up with one hand, the hardwood cold under my palm. My dignity burned hotter than my bruised hip. I looked at Linda, waiting for anything. She kept her eyes on the floor. In the blinking silence of Christmas lights, I understood what I'd refused to see for years. To them, I wasn't family. I was maintenance. I stood slowly swallowing the pain and walked out into the Iowa cold without a word. My truck door shut with a hollow thump. I sat in the driveway, hands locked on the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping me upright. The porch light cast a weak yellow circle over the snow. Through the window, I could still see movement at the table. Heads turning, someone laughing too loud, like laughter could erase what happened. My hip pulsed like a warning light. At 56, you don't bounce back. You feel every year at once. I started the engine and backed out without looking back. Tires crunched over frozen slush. I drove with the heater blasting and the radio off. I didn't want a Christmas song lying to me. I ended up at Casey's for coffee because I didn't know where else to go. It smelled like grease and cinnamon rolls. I sat alone in a booth, staring at the dark window, watching my breath fog the glass. My phone buzzed. Linda. I let it ring. Then Kyle. Then Linda again. I didn't answer, not for revenge, but because if I spoke, I didn't trust what would come out. And I could already hear Linda's tone, smoothing things over like we could clean this up with an apology and a pie. I drove home, my home, at least on paper, to the small ranch house I'd owned long before Linda. 2 bedrooms, a garage that still smelled faintly of sawdust, and a quiet that didn't pretend. On the way in, I passed the thin folder on the hall shelf, my papers. Deed copy, insurance, warranties, and receipts from that kitchen remodel at Linda's place. Menards runs every Saturday for a month. Faucet, sink, cabinet hinges, backsplash tile. I set piece by piece after work, hands cramped, back aching. I remembered Linda in that finished kitchen, hand over her mouth, saying, "Tom, I didn't know anyone would do that for me. I didn't do it to be a hero. I did it because I believed we were building something." Seeing those receipts felt like proof I'd paved my way into a family that still saw me as a guest. I limped inside, changed out of the stained shirt, and checked the bruise in the mirror. Purple was already spreading across my hip, wide as my palm. I sat in my recliner with an ice pack, staring at a blank TV. That's when a memory hit me, sharp and stupid. 2 years earlier, when Linda's faucet wouldn't stop leaking, Kyle had laughed and said, "That's why Mom needed a real man around." I'd smiled then. I thought he meant me. At 9:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Kyle. "You embarrassed my dad. You should have just moved. That chair isn't yours." Then another. "You're just a guest in this family, Tom. A guest who's overstayed." I read it twice. My hand tightened around the phone. I didn't reply. Around midnight, I tried to sleep. I couldn't get comfortable. Every shift sent pain through my hip. Replaying Kyle's hands on my chest, Linda's eyes on the floor, the scrape of my father's chair like it was being dragged out of my life. I got up and made coffee, strong and plain, the way my dad drank it. I stood at the kitchen window watching snow drift under the streetlight. I told myself it was just a chair, just a holiday moment. People get strange. Let it go. But it wasn't the chair. It was the sentence Kyle said out loud, what everyone else had been treating as an unspoken truth. "You don't belong." At 2:13 a.m., Linda finally texted, "Tom, please. He didn't mean it. He's under stress. Can you come back and talk?" I stared until the screen dimmed. He didn't mean it. Like a shove is accidental. Like get out slips out by mistake. Like wiping gravy off the floor matters more than the man who hit it. I set the phone down and rubbed my forehead. Beneath the hurt and shame, something else began to rise. My father used to say, "Your name is your word, Tommy. Guard it." I'd done that my whole life. Paid bills early, kept my credit clean, didn't co-sign for people who treated money like a joke, didn't let anyone put hands on me and call it love. Just after 6, my phone chimed with a sound I recognized, a credit alert. My stomach dropped before I opened it. Subject line, change detected. My credit score had dropped. Not a small dip, a real hit. New inquiry, new account activity. I sat back, colder than the snow outside. In my world, that only happened if something was opened in my name. And the only people with my information were family. By 6:12 a.m., my phone was buzzing again. Call after call. Linda, Kyle, Linda, an unfamiliar local number. I didn't answer. I just watched the screen light up and thought, with slow certainty, whatever they did, it finally landed on me. My thumb hovered over the answer button, but I couldn't press it. If I heard Kyle's voice, I'd either explode or fold, and I'd been folding for years. The calls stopped, then started again. Linda, Kyle, unknown, ring out. By 6:23 a.m., the log showed 23 missed calls. Kyle had called 12 times, Linda 9, the unknown number twice. I tapped Kyle's voicemail. His voice was fast. Tom, call me back. It's some stupid banking thing. They're acting crazy. Just call me. 2 minutes later, another, less confident. Listen, it's not what it looks like. I just need you to talk to someone. They said your name's on something. The third made me snort despite myself. They froze my account. I can't get gas. Just fix it, man. Then he slipped. Dad, he said, then corrected himself. Tom. I mean Tom, please. All those years, he couldn't call me Dad. But the moment money got tight, the word came out anyway. I clicked Linda's voicemail. Her voice was shaking. Tom, please answer. Kyle's freaking out. There's something with the credit union. Can you just pick up? Then the unknown number called again, right on cue. Local area code. Cedar Rapids. This time I let it ring once, twice, then answered. Mr. Walker, a man said, professional and measured. This is Mark Ellison from the Cedar Rapids Credit Union Fraud Department. We've been trying to reach you. I closed my eyes. I figured. We detected multiple irregular activities overnight, he continued. A personal loan application, a credit card request, and an attempted line of credit increase, all submitted using your full information. I said nothing. There was no surprise left to spend. We stopped everything before funds were released, Mark added. But I need to ask directly, did you authorize any of these applications? No, I said. The word came out steady, clear. I did not. There was a brief pause, then the sound of typing. Thank you for confirming. Given the pattern and access points, this appears to be internal identity misuse. In plain terms, someone close to you. I looked at the kitchen table, bare and quiet. I understand. We'll need to lock your accounts temporarily, he said. You'll come in today to file a formal fraud affidavit. We also recommend placing a credit freeze immediately. Do it, I said. All of it. When I hung up, the house felt different. Not heavier, just sharper. Like fog had burned off and left hard edges behind. My phone buzzed again. Kyle? I ignored it. 10 seconds later, Linda texted, "What is going on?" The bank says you froze everything. Kyle can't access his account. I stared at the message. Read it twice. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't ask why my credit was hit. She went straight to Kyle. I typed, then erased, then typed again. Finally, I sent one sentence. The bank detected fraud in my name. Dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. This is a misunderstanding, she wrote. Kyle was just trying to help with some bills. He didn't think. I set the phone down before the sentence finished in my head. At 7:10 a.m., there was a knock at my door. Firm. Controlled. Not urgent, but official. I opened it to find a man in a dark jacket holding a folder. Same logo as the credit union. Mr. Walker, he said, I'm here to collect signatures and walk you through next steps, if it's all right. I stepped aside and let him in. We sat at the kitchen table. He laid out the paperwork neatly. Fraud affidavit, credit freeze confirmation, identity protection enrollment. Everything clean, everything documented. This protects you, he said, but it also creates a record. I want a record, I replied. He nodded like he respected that. While I signed, my phone buzzed nonstop on the counter. Kyle, Linda, Kyle again. The representative didn't comment, just slid the next page over. When he left, the house went quiet again. Real quiet, the kind that doesn't argue with you. At 8:42 a.m., Kyle finally sent a text that wasn't yelling. Tom, please, you're blowing this up. It was just temporary. I was going to pay it back. I read it once, then once more. I typed slowly. You used my name without permission. That's fraud. 3 dots appeared instantly. Come on, we're family. I didn't respond because that word family had already been defined, clearly, publicly, on Christmas Eve. By mid-morning, my hip ached less, but my resolve didn't. I put on a clean jacket and grabbed my keys. I had an appointment at the credit union and paperwork to finish. Before leaving, I paused in the hallway and looked at the thin folder on the shelf again. My documents, my proof, my name. I added one more thing to it before walking out. A printed screenshot of Kyle's text. You're just a guest in this family. I slipped it into the folder and closed it carefully. Then I locked my door, stepped into the cold Iowa morning, and drove toward the bank, steady, upright, and no longer confused about where I stood. My phone rang again. I stared at the screen, heart sinking. Cedar Rapids area code, unknown. I let it ring out. My head was pounding, my hip throbbing, my chest tight. Everything from last night played on loop. The shove, the chair, Linda's blank face, the smell of gravy on the hardwood. Finally, I exhaled and decided to call the credit union myself. My hands were still cold, numb from tension, but I forced them to dial. A calm voice answered on the other end. I explained what had happened, the new inquiries, the frozen accounts, the sudden drop in my credit score. The representative listened, typing, asking questions. It turned out there had been suspicious activity tied to my personal information. Someone had opened accounts in my name, made transactions, and triggered alerts. My stomach sank deeper. The pieces clicked into place. Kyle's frantic calls, Linda's panic, the unknown number, my own family. Somehow someone had targeted me directly. I read it word by word. Here's exactly what you wrote. I hung up, shaking, realizing I needed to protect myself. Years of being careful, keeping my name spotless, keeping my life in order, it all felt fragile in a moment. I started writing everything down: times, calls, messages, transactions, evidence, proof. Coffee was long gone cold, and the snow outside reflected the pale morning light. I leaned back in the recliner, rubbing my temple. Anger rose, but beneath it was a sharper, colder clarity. This wasn't just about a chair, or even about last night's humiliation. It was about boundaries, respect, and the people I trusted crossing lines I had never allowed. By 7 a.m., I was making calls to the credit monitoring service, alerting banks, and checking accounts for irregularities. I refused to panic. Every step had to be methodical. I reminded myself of my father's words. Your name is your word, Tommy. Guard it. Every hour, every alert, every call was a test of that principle. And while the house would be quiet, the snow falling outside, I realized this Christmas would be remembered not for presents or turkey, but for a lesson I had learned the hard way. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who make you fight for yourself the most. I answered, "Hello, Mr. Walker." A woman's voice, calm and professional, came through. "This is Marcy with Hawkeye Community Credit Union. I'm calling about an urgent matter on your account. Do you have a moment to speak privately?" "I'm alone," I said. "Thank you. We're reaching out because a delinquency notice has been issued on a personal loan where you're listed as the guarantor." I blinked. "The guarantor?" "Yes, a cosigner," she explained. "The loan is past due, and our system flagged your credit profile." She paused. "The other party called at 5:30. He said, there must be a mistake. You always handle the bills and approve anything needed to keep the loan current." Heat rose behind my eyes. "Always handle the bills, as if I were some service plan. How much is it?" I asked. She flipped a page. $18,400. Opened 8 months ago. First payment missed last month. Second missed this week. $18,000. That wasn't just gas money. That was a truck. That was months of someone else's bad decisions. And this affects my credit score," I said, though I already knew. "Yes," she said softly, "because you're tied to it. That's why you got the alert." I stared at the numbers and thought about every early payment I'd made to keep my 3-digit badge clean. At our age, a good score isn't vanity. It's proof you didn't wreck your life. "I didn't cosign anything," I said. She had expected that. "Mr. Walker, the loan file includes your name and a signature attributed to you. If you believe the signature isn't yours, we have procedures." "What procedures?" "We can open a fraud review," she said gently. "The fastest way is for you to come in. We open at 8, but I can have someone meet you sooner if you can make it." I glanced at the clock. 6:31. I'll be there. I didn't call Linda or Kyle. I put on jeans, a flannel shirt, and work boots like armor. The snow outside slapped my face awake. My hip protested, but I welcomed the pain. It kept me grounded. The credit union parking lot was mostly empty, the sky the color of old steel. I sat in my truck, looking at my reflection, gray at the temples, eyes tired. I thought of my father's chair, Kyle's hand on it like he owned it. Then I walked inside. Marcy met me in the lobby, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a badge clipped to her cardigan. She led me to a small office smelling of toner and coffee. "I'm sorry, it's the day after Christmas," she said. "I know this is stressful." "Just show me," I replied. She slid a folder across the desk. A loan summary with Kyle's name, Linda's name, and mine, typed under guarantor. My stomach rolled. Marcy turned the monitor. The scanned signature appeared. It looked close, but the rhythm was wrong. The T in my last name had a loop I never used. The flourish at the end wasn't mine. "Is that yours?" she asked. "No," I said. She nodded. Do you ever sign as Tommy? My throat tightened. Only my father called me that. No, I said. There it was, shaky cursive. Tommy Walker. Who had access to your information? Marcy asked softly. I stared at the screen. My wife. She opened a drawer and placed a form on the desk. This is a statement of fraud. If you sign it, we open an investigation. It can have serious consequences for whoever submitted this paperwork. My phone buzzed. Kyle. Marcy glanced at it. You don't have to decide right now. I looked at the pen, then at the signature. I'm deciding because my name means something, I said. I signed the fraud statement with a steady hand and a sick stomach. Marcy filed the form and explained the process. No drama, just procedure. That made it real. My phone buzzed again. Linda. Tom, where are you? She said. Kyle can't access his account. Ray's losing it. What did you do? I repeated. Why is my name on an $18,000 loan? Linda whispered. I was trying to help. Kyle said Rye would cover it. It was temporary. And I signed your name. You would have said no, I replied. No is a full sentence. My name is not a community resource. I drove to Linda's house. Snow fell silently. Kyle stood like a bouncer, eyes wild. Are you happy? He snapped. Ray stood behind him, arms crossed. In the corner, my father's chair, moved, exiled. Kyle smirked. We moved your little throne. It's my dad's chair, I said. Your dad's dead. Mine's right here. Kyle laughed. Rye jabbed a finger at me. You don't do this to family, he barked. I looked at him. Kyle didn't care about family when he shoved me last night. You're a guest here, Tom. A guest who overstayed, Kyle said. Linda stood in the doorway, dish towel twisted in her hands, avoiding my eyes. That hurt the most. Tell him whose name is on that loan, I said. Linda whispered. I signed it. I thought it would be okay. Kyle stared, then spat. You made my mom a criminal. I told them the truth, I said. I didn't sign anything. You could have covered it, Kyle shouted. That hit harder than the shove. He was right about one thing I had done. I walked out before anger made a mess I couldn't clean. In my truck, my hip throbbed. I wanted to go numb, to call it a misunderstanding. Then I remembered the VFW. Coffee. Frank Delaney, 72, retired attorney. I slid the folder to him. He skimmed, tapped the signature. That's not you. No, I said. That's my father's voice on paper. Frank nodded. This isn't family stress. This is identity misuse. Let it slide. It won't stop. Next time it could be a mortgage, a credit card, your retirement. I gathered documents, old statements, IDs, a notebook, dates, calls, the loan, every detail. Doorbell camera footage, just facts. By noon, the story was spreading, texts from relatives, friends, even someone from church. I didn't respond. I saved everything. Marcy called. Mr. Walker, the review is formal. An investigator will contact you today. Investigator Harlan was calm, clipped, professional. He asked about the loan and my signature. We walked through Christmas Eve, the chair, the shove, the calls. I signed pages to show my normal signature. Harlan compared it to the Tommy signature. Not a match. Kyle had everything. Trust until it didn't. The county attorney got involved. Linda cooperated, agreed to restitution, financial counseling, and no more access to my credit. Kyle lost more than he expected. Truck, restricted accounts, missed job opportunities. Weeks passed. Snow melted. I was living alone, and the silence felt honest, not lonely. One Saturday, I retrieved my father's chair with Frank's help. I didn't fight. I didn't take it in spite. The chair was mine, not power but memory. I sat in it by my window, coffee in hand. Snow fell. Heater kicked on. My phone buzzed with a text from Kyle. I didn't think you'd actually do it. I typed back, neither did I until you forced my hand. Linda came by later with groceries. She apologized, admitted fear, and explained her choices. I told her, this isn't about money. It's about how you valued my safety, my name, my body. The county attorney didn't jail Linda. She faced consequences, signed agreements, and learned accountability. Kyle faced financial repercussions. By March, the separation was finalized. No shouting, just paperwork and quiet understanding. I sat in my father's chair, finally feeling peace. Respect is a two-way street. Burn your side. Don't expect mine to stay open. If this story resonates, if you've ever had kindness mistaken for weakness, share it. You're not alone at the table. If you want, I can also combine both parts of your story into one seamless word-for-word transcript for easier reading. Do you want me to do that?